Hello. Today I'm greeting you from the beautiful island called Antigua. This is just amazing. You might hear the wind in the background. I'm within about 50 feet of the beach, and it is quite a place. This particular podcast is going to be a little different than ones in the past and ones that will be coming. I'm not interviewing anybody, but I'm going to share with you how this aspect of winning can be something that you enjoy in your own life. The fact that Jesus is winning has been, we've talked about it from places in Africa and Asia, around the world, and it's the truth. All the bad news, while that may be true, it is not, I don't believe, as significant as the truth that Jesus is winning. So how can we experience that in our own lives? Well, I'm going to share with you an idea that I actually have written about in my next book coming out. It should be coming out this spring. It's called Go. If you're interested in a copy, especially after you hear this podcast, shoot me an email, and as soon as I have copies in print, I can get one to you. I don't think it'll be too expensive. I'm sure not more than $10. But anyway, this book, Go, and the subtitle is "When Going Becomes Your Modus Operandi, Life Gets Crazy Good." And I just share, some of the things that keep us from going, but also some of the joys that I've experienced just by going. Let me just begin with reading something that is very foundational in this going. See, for years I have heard, and I don't know where I heard it first, but I had heard that in the Great Commission, when Jesus says, "Go into all the world and make disciples," that the primary command there is to make disciples, and that the word "go" could also mean as you are going or wherever you are. The idea of wherever you are, make disciples. Now, that's not a bad thought, but that is not what Jesus meant. I want to read this to you. It's a little bit technical regarding the actual language that Jesus was speaking in, which was Greek. But let me just read this paragraph to you, and I think that will explain what I just said. Okay, so the word for go in Greek is something called a, quote, participle of attendant circumstance, end quote, which means it takes the full force of the imperative, the command that follows, which in the Great Commission is to make disciples. One Greek scholar writes, "Recognition of the participles of attendant circumstance is important. It would be a mistake to render this word as you go. The command is to go and make disciples. This means that semantically the action of going is commanded just as making disciples is." So when I read that, I was challenged, because not only had I heard, but I think I'd even taught that go into all the world and make disciples, that this going could be wherever you are. That's not what Jesus meant. We know his disciples didn't understand that that's what it meant, because every one of them went. Just one, for example, Thomas went to South India. That's a long ways from Israel. And he didn't go by United Airlines. That was a long trip. And he went, and South India is different because of Thomas. Anyway, all of his disciples went. I could share with you the nations that they all went to. And so they understood what Jesus meant when he said go. Now, what he did not say when he said to go is how long you have to stay or how far you have to go. I understand people with small children, it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to pack them all up and go to India on a short-term trip. That's very challenging, very expensive, very difficult. But how about going to a refugee apartment and distributing clothes or food or praying for people? I mean, there's different ways we can go. The key is, and what I want to get across in this podcast, is that we are commanded to go. And what I believe is that when we go, we will experience the winning. I don't know about you, but I like to win. I just enjoyed the Super Bowl a week and a half ago when the Chiefs won. Had they lost, I would not have watched that game anymore. But since a week and a half ago, I've probably watched the fourth quarter in its entirety maybe 6 times. Why? Because I like to win. And so I want to encourage you, as we've been talking in these podcasts about Jesus' winning, experience it in your own life. Because as we go, or when going becomes your modus operandi, life gets crazy good. Now, I know that there are some challenges to going. And in the book that will be coming out soon, I discuss these challenges. I realize that, in some cases, unfortunately, a lot of people, they just don't care about those who are lost. And if that's you, then I want to encourage you to pray and to repent. Because we should care about the lost. And when we do care about the lost, then we will be more willing to go and take the gospel to them. Because again, the command is not only to go, but it's to go and make disciples. Now, we've talked about making disciples in some of the other podcasts, this idea of preaching the gospel and finding a man of peace, and then teaching them to obey the commands of Christ, which are found there at obeychrist.com. We've talked about some of this on making disciples. So today, the idea is going. And so we just need to be willing to go. Now, I also understand that there are some people who have an aversion to risk. I'll just give you an example. Like yesterday, I was coming to stay at this complex here in Antigua, and my airplane was landing a little bit late, and they don't have anyone at the front desk at night. And so I didn't know how this was going to work out. And I wasn't sure about getting any of their money, because I tried to use my card there where I was previous, and I wasn't able to get any of their money. So I wasn't sure how this was all going to work out. It was a little bit risky getting on that airplane and landing here at night and not knowing for sure that I was going to be able to get to this place, and then I didn't know what would happen when I got here. Well, it just so happened I found an ATM in this small little airport on my where I was transferring through my layover in St. Martin, this airport, and they had an ATM. They gave U.S. dollars, which is what works here. So that part worked out. And then when I got here, I get out of my taxi. I'm by myself. I get out. It's dark. I open the gate, and another man walks through the gate with me. Now, I have no idea where he came from. He wasn't on my taxi. I don't know why he happened to walk in at the same time. But he had received an email which gave instructions on what to do. And he says, "Could you check your email?" Well, I started to check. I couldn't get mine to come up because it's an encrypted email, and sometimes they're difficult to get. And so he goes, "Well, I've got the Wi-Fi password for this place. Here's the password." He gives me the password. Well, then my email comes up. I see I had received instructions. I walk right to my place. There's the key. Boom, I'm in. Now, none of that is coincidence. The Lord just does this kind of stuff. Again, I don't even know if this guy is a legit guy. He may have been an angel. I don't know. He just happened to show up and walk through the gate with me, and he had all the instructions I needed. So all I'm saying is there are times when you're going to go, you have to be willing to take a risk. And sometimes the risks are much more serious than what I just described. But an aversion to risk is not something that we see in the lives of the disciples, especially after Jesus had risen from the dead and they had received the Holy Spirit. Well, there's other reasons. Sometimes we're just too busy, and we're just not able to set aside the time. Well, I believe that we can all do what we really want to do. If you really want to go and share the gospel somewhere, you can do that. It might take some time to work it out, but you can. So I don't think busyness is a legit excuse. I think it is exactly that. It's an excuse. Sometimes it's expensive and we don't have the finances. I realize that. Janet and I have been working in missions for over 29 years, and there have been many times where we did not have the money, but God still provided in His timing. And I like the line, if God guides, He provides. Or another one, if it's God's will, it's His bill. And the idea is that when you are willing to go in obedience to the Lord, I believe that God will provide. And I have seen many times where it was just incredible how He provided just in time. So this is more a lack of faith or trust than it is a lack of money. We just need to trust the Lord. If He's leading us to go somewhere, maybe on a short-term trip, whatever it would be, I believe if He's truly leading, then He will provide. And so we need to not use that again as an excuse. Sometimes we just don't think we can do it. We just can't. It's just something that's telling us we can't. Well, my dad preached a sermon many years ago called Kick the Can't. And I'll never forget that one. He demonstrated on the there on the stage in the church. He ran over and kicked a can. Something I'll never forget, you know. We just need to kick that can't. Jesus told us to go. He's commanded us to go. So yes, we can. We can go. It's just a matter sometimes of the faith, of the desire. And so what I want to encourage you with in this podcast is the fact that when you do go, life can get crazy good. I mean, where I'm sitting right now, I'm looking out at the beautiful Caribbean Sea. It is awesome. Palm trees are waving. I think they're waving at me. They're probably actually waving to the Lord as praise unto Him. This is just beautiful, and it's just fantastic. You know, I've had the chance many times to walk on the Great Wall of China. What an amazing thing to see the Great Wall. See Mount Everest. It's just incredible. Most amazing mountain. It's just awesome. Been so many places, and it's just been a privilege to go, and the greatest thing obviously has been the people. I met a young man in Vietnam one time who had never ever one time in his life heard the gospel, and we were out on a boat going to swim, and I got to share with him, and his name was Nia. He prayed to accept the Lord. He had never heard the gospel. He had never heard about a God. Those kind of experiences are hard to top. I mean, it's just awesome. So, without a doubt, I mean, the scenery's nice. Seeing the pyramids in Egypt is a cool thing. All of that's fun and nice. But the part where life gets crazy good is just in the people you meet. I've met people in India who, like Adam, a friend of mine in India. You'll hear from him on a future podcast. He just has an incredible ministry working with orphans, and over 100 orphans, and he's got a school for like 400 kids. Most of them are Hindus or from Hindu families. And Adam is just an amazing guy, very humble. I was just over there about, a month and a half ago. I arrived, picked me up at the airport. He puts a lei over my neck, a beautiful lei, the flowers, Then he takes me to the orphanage, and I walk in, and they're all cheering. It's embarrassing. I sit down on a chair, and they wash my feet. It's like, wow, this is so amazing. Just wanting to honor me, and it's just like, man. And so I spent some time with Adam, and we had pastors come to a conference. It was really great, but to meet a man like that, so humble and such a servant, and just sacrificing what he could be doing for children who have nothing. I have another friend in India. His name is Veda. He helps with the elderly and handicapped children. Amazing. What a sacrifice. So meeting people like this is what happens when you go. When you go, life really does get crazy good. And yes, there are challenging times. Yes, there is risk at times you have to take. Yes to that, but I just want to encourage you that when you go, you can experience winning like hardly any other time. I mean, it's just such a blessing, such a privilege to be able to go. Now, if you don't have experience in going, then you may need to go with someone who has had some experience. We've got some trips coming up if you're interested. And depending on when you would hear this podcast, someone could listen to it months and months from now. But so we always have trips going on. But if you're interested in coming up, we're going to Thailand, going to Guyana, going to Ghana. So we got South America, Africa, Southeast Asia. So there's a lot of different places that we go. But if you don't have experience and you'd like to go, more so than maybe across the street, but you'd like to go around the world. If that's you, then shoot me an email. Again, it's markbax, MARKBAX, at proton.me. Shoot me an email, and I'd love for you to go with me, or I can tell you about some other trips coming up. But I just want to encourage you. I have now been working in missions for nearly 30 years, and I can tell you from experience, a lot of experience of going. Hard places, easy places. The Caribbean versus a village in Afghanistan. I mean, you name it. Had a lot of experience in going. I can just tell you that that's where I get to see, and that's where I get to experience the truth that Jesus is winning. So go. Wherever he leads you, go. You won't regret it. Live life with no regrets. And that we can do that by obedience to his command to go. So I hope this encourages you. Yes, Jesus is winning around the world, but Jesus can win in your world as you obey him in this simple but clear and direct command to go. So would you do it? If you have questions or thoughts, shoot me an email. Love to hear from you. I just know one thing for sure. Jesus is winning.